LinkedIn Live. Actually, this is our real one. We just had a little rehearsal, and it really wasn't uh, going live. So now we are live, and we're so happy to be live. Again, chat's on. I just kind of shared really quickly how this has evolved and has grown, and it's doing it by the day. And we've had some excellent co hosts, especially this week, Trevor on Saturday, Sarah yesterday. And I want to introduce Gretchen Skalka, who's a regular and really was here from the beginning. And it has been so essential in the formative stages of building this thing. So, Gretchen, love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I actually, it's interesting because this is one of the things with live is that you hope that the technology is there to back you up and is working. But yeah, no, I think that this is again with live and live conversations, it's such a great gift that I think this platform and others offer people because it's another way to stay, in touch with each other, but also learn from each other and get that, real time benefit of understanding what the other person is going through and seeing if you can help them. I'm looking at you thinking that this is still a problem on the live.
Yeah, yeah. Have you seen? Why don't you? Um, Gosh,
Yeah,
let
I am not. Let me see if I'm seeing it. I mean, I think it's okay to talk about it while we're looking to see because I think this probably happens to a lot of people. Um, when they're Nope, I see it on Facebook. So it
yeah,
is there on Facebook,
but
and
it's not streaming on LinkedIn.
that's okay because it's still streaming. So I'm not sure what's going on with LinkedIn. Is your LinkedIn linked in your channels?
Yeah. So what I may do is, why don't you keep talking and I'll keep fixing, and that
Okay.
way anybody who's listening, you know, can continue to learn as we go.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. So I was just mentioning that, when it comes to live events like this one, and I do think that it's so important to, oh, and it is live on YouTube as well. So that's also very good. So this is another example of the power of these live events. So,
Hmm.
and also some of the challenges that people will have. So when you go live, we're using Restream, which is what I use for the new one that I started, courtesy of you and Trevor and a few other people who gave me the confidence to do it. But that, with these platforms, you can stream to your other platforms, and that's great. You're still a little dependent, obviously, on the technology and hoping that it works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So for everybody who's watching this on Facebook or YouTube or any of the other channels that you might have linked up, that's great. For the LinkedIn audience, that might be a little bit of a challenge. So how do you get around that? Well, obviously there's a recording of this, and so they can see it after the fact. You can post it to your profile, and that's great too, because at the end of the day, the benefit is really going to be the conversation that you have. So what are we bringing forth in each other? Now, obviously, the back and forth banter between host and co-host is really important, but so is what the audience is getting from it. So I don't, obviously know if anybody on my YouTube or my Facebook, you could comment and then it will come through here. LinkedIn is usually, that's where the biggest one. I know, Don, you have a huge audience and following on LinkedIn. So I know that can be a challenge as well, especially right now when I know there are people who have messaged saying, hey, we want to get in and see the live and we're not sure where it is. So I know they're working on it. I'm actually going to, while I'm talking, I'm going to put a message out. It's live everywhere but LinkedIn. Odd. So I'm just letting people know that, the whatever is happening, it is a challenge, but of course it is something that, you can get through. So just to go back a little bit to the purpose of today's talk, while you're looking through how that looks and that why the LinkedIn link may not be working. Well, actually, while we're doing that, let me check my profile and see if it's showing on mine. And it's not. So we do know that LinkedIn is the challenge. So that is something maybe to look into. I'm not sure why. I know that LinkedIn has had some growing pains recently. They've released so many new features and so much has gone on that I don't know if a lot of people have noticed this, where maybe their notifications stopped, or they can't
Mhm.
respond or comment on a post and things like that. And I think a lot of that happens when you get a platform that is so popular right now, can get a little saturated in terms of activity. I know that that happened over the weekend. I was reading with Chat GPT, which everybody loves now, and it was at capacity. Nobody could use it. That happens too. So anybody who's going to watch this on the replay on LinkedIn, understand there was nothing that you did, nothing that Don
Mhm.
did, nothing that anybody did. This is part of being in the age of technology, where everything we do pretty much is dependent on some form of technology. And I think that's okay. That alone is a huge discussion point. So we're talking about, your theme today: initiate, motivate, applicate, and celebrate. All those things are fine. I can still celebrate that we still have a lot to talk about. And I think that anybody who watches the replay of this will get a lot from it. Again, you're the host, so it'll be up to you to decide how long you want to talk. The audience participation part of a live is critical. Like, that's so important. So I'm actually going to do a quick test while we're here.
Well, I noticed I disconnected LinkedIn and reinstalled it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I reinstalled it, my YouTube says streaming in
Yep.
green underneath it.
And it
My
is.
LinkedIn sending data.
Yep. And so I just commented on my YouTube, "Hi everyone," and that came through. Now let me go to Facebook and see if I can also comment on my Facebook and say, "Hi everyone," and see if that comes through. And so, yep, so that lets you know you are streaming. It is fine, but LinkedIn is having a challenge. So this isn't a restream issue, and it's not a live issue. It's a
Mhm.
LinkedIn issue right now, and that's not to disparage the platform. Anybody who's used LinkedIn in the last, certainly 6 months, knows that there are some challenges that the platform is having. And so, for this one, I'm happy if you want to come back and have this talk again, or if you want to just keep talking. I know that that Facebook and YouTube are fine. I don't know what other channels you or platforms you might be
Oh, I'm
streaming
just doing YouTube and LinkedIn.
to.
And
Okay.
and I think, and that's the fascinating thing about LinkedIn Live, is that you really end up only talking about what you're experiencing at the time. Now,
Exactly.
if it's audience interaction, that takes over center stage. And, the upside is that it's spontaneous and real. The challenge is everything has to work right for it to support something like that. But I think the lesson to be learned
Hmm.
is you can only control what you can control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is exactly right. And I think that's really important, because for anybody who might be watching this on the replay, you can only control what you can control, and you can't get upset about things. I know you can. I mean, people do,
Mhm.
but it's not in your best interest. It's not in anybody's best interest to be upset and chained to a reaction of something that is completely out of your control. This right now is out of anybody's control. So the LinkedIn audience, which would be the biggest part of the audience for your broadcast, can't see it live. They can see it on the replay, but they can't see it live. If this happens to you in real life, just let's take a situation where, something happens that you can't control. You're on the way to an appointment. You get stuck in traffic. You can't control that.
Mhm.
What one thing that people do, and I'll tell you a fun, well, not fun, but an interesting story about something like that in a second. But one thing people do is immediately, like, that anxiety kicks in. They're thinking about all this cascade of what ifs. What if I don't get there in time? What if they cancel my appointment, my interview, my whatever? Like, what if my boss is mad at me if I'm going into the out? Whatever it is, those things, none of those things have happened yet. They may never happen, but our brains go right there. And so that's a great opportunity to do some, like, just, I call it diffusing your inner bomb. Like, just deep breaths, 1, 2, 3, take 2, 3 deep breaths. There's a uh mind body coach, Yulia Bogdanova, and she does a breathing exercise that she takes us through, which is fantastically helpful for recentering yourself. And then really think about what you can do, and in those moments when you're not thinking about the what ifs, you can strategize. You can think about the what ifs. When you're so much in it, you're not thinking that, oh, there's an exit I could get like really quick. If we're just moving at 20 miles an hour, I'll get there and I can just take an alternate route. Or I got a cell phone. I can just call people and let them know. But when you're so aggravated, you're honking the horn, you're gesturing, you're so upset, you're not thinking about the strategic ways that you can alleviate and help yourself out of the situation. You know, I've written about it, but years ago, I was on my way to work, and there's a very popular Dunkin' Donuts. Well, this is where we used to live, but there's a very popular Dunkin' Donuts that was on my route. And I thought, you know what? I'm a little early. I'm going to get myself a nice coffee. I'm going to do it. So I got in, and there's a line. There's a long line at this Dunkin' Donuts. It goes all the way out to the street. You can see it. You know it's happening. If you've passed that Dunkin' Donuts, you know that's a thing with them. So you make a choice to get in that line. It didn't just happen and you found yourself, you know, in a long line. You chose to get there. So I was in the line and I'm listening to an audiobook. It's no big deal for me. And then I'm switching back and forth between the audiobook and the radio because I'm curious what's going on. And then I get up to the window and I make my order. No biggie. But while I'm watching, you know, I'm flipping around the radio, I'm seeing this guy behind me. And he is just animated and not in a good way. He is so pissed off, Dawn. He's honking his horn. And he's doing things like gesturing at me and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I'm just here in the line in front of you. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm not preventing you from doing anything. Like, let's chill. But what really caught my eye wasn't, I mean, it was him, but there was a kid next to him. There's a little boy in the car with him. And so my brain immediately, I see this visual of a child awash in negativity. He's in that car and all he's hearing and all he's seeing is whoever, parent, whatever he was, radiating this anger and negativity. And that stays with you, right? Mm-hmm. So I did the thing where they say, you know, pay it forward. So I paid for their breakfast, whatever they ordered. You know, the lady told me, I said how much was theirs. And so I paid for theirs and then off I went. And I have no idea how it affected him, but my whole point of that was I wanted to do something nice for him to sort of take him out of that moment and at least make something that he was perceiving as a horrible thing not so horrible. And just off on my day I went. But all I could really think about was if you don't do that and if you're not able to get yourself out of that mindset, you take that with you to work, to your coworkers, to school, to your teachers, to your friends. And then you take it back home. That thing that happened 8, 9, 10 hours earlier that was minor, you take that and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger in a bad way until some people just, they explode. They can't handle it. You know, it's really important to be able to get yourself out of those situations and realize it's not that big a deal. I mean, to me, it's like, okay, if you choose to get in the line at a very popular, you know, drive-through place, and your biggest problem is waiting in line so that somebody can hand you your pre-prepared food or drink through a window, you don't really have, I mean, if that's your biggest problem in the day or if that's what sets you off, you really need to check your priorities. You don't have problems. You don't. If that's your problem, you have no problems. And I'm not preaching. I'm just letting you know. I'm saying this from a person who's had our house blow up, I have MS, have all these things that I've been attacked by a dog, like all these things have happened. I've gone through lab. You know, there are bad things that happen. We need to really keep things in perspective. And in the moment when things are happening, that is the most important time to know how to do it. And yay, somebody, Celis made it. Woo, we have somebody made it from
we got a real person.
Yay.
Yeah, I think that's so great the way you laid that out because
hi, Mike.
I was even thinking this morning that by the time a child gets to 5 years old, they've heard 20,000 no's and 5,000 yeses. Yeah. And all you got to do is start turning no's into yeses, don't touch the stove goes to thank you for not touching the stove. Right.
I'm so happy you're being safe. I'm so happy, you're making good choices. Like hi, it's so great to see you, Mike. I'm so glad I put a message on your LinkedIn.
Yeah. Mike's actually going to be hosting, I think, today, so that's exciting.
It is.
And that's the beauty of this, what I learned, and I keep saying that it's not how many times you fall, it's how fast you get up. And even today, with this technical thing, my only concern is, will it happen tomorrow? You know, but I never know. But here's the thing. Eventually, everything that comes to you is a surprise, and then you're shocked, and then you're kind of taken off course for a little while. You know, it's like something hits you and knocks you a little bit, but doesn't bowl you over.
Yeah.
And then you come back to it and say, how do we fix it? You
Yeah.
know, how do we move from this, and how do we enjoy it? You know,
Absolutely.
and some of the greatest celebrations come from some of the most embarrassing situations.
Yeah.
Right? You find yourself into something, and you just, it's so unbelievable it gets funny, right?
Yeah, and we've all had those things that have happened. I mean, when you said that embarrassing situations, I was just remembering one when I was in college. You know, our final, you know, I went to Auburn, and there's this, if you're familiar with Alabama and the red clay mud in Alabama, it's a thing, and it stains everything it touches. You can't get it out. Well, you know, I was running to my exam, and there was a hill that I had to go. You can see where I'm going with this. I lost my footing, and I slid butt first all the way down that hill. I have to go take my test. I'm old enough to let you know, this was before online. This was back when you had to show up and take the test. You could not do it online. There were no cell phones back at this. I mean, like, seriously.
Mhm.
So you had to go. So my whole backside is full of red mud. I don't have time to go back and change. I have to go. And so I went. I was so embarrassed, and I went. I had to like clear my head. It was really hard, and take that test. And I've always celebrated the fact that I did that, because I was completely embarrassed. I mean, I had to walk the rest of the way to my building, and Auburn's a big campus. And, you know, knowing that, you know, I might be walking toward you and look okay, but as soon as I pass it, you're going to be like, oh my. So girlfriend had a fall, but I did it, and I got through it. And yes, Mike, it was not fun, but you know, it happened. Things are going to happen, and how you react to it and what you get from it is everything. And the ability to find humor in really hard moments, you know, it doesn't mean the moments are humorous. It means finding humor in the dark or challenging moments, because they're there and we learn from them. And that vulnerability is really important, because it's part of being human. And so I love the celebrate part, because like we were talking before, the first attempt at the show, you know, I really feel like people wait until the big goal is gotten before they celebrate, not realizing that celebrating all the steps along the way is important, because you don't get to the goal without all those steps. Yes, Mike, those are the moments that change us. Absolutely. I love that comment. You know, they absolutely do change us, and we remember them. You know, those experiences, those embarrassing or hard fought or any of those experiences stay with us. So they do change us, and they help us become what it is that we're going to become ultimately. And I think that's really important. So yeah, that celebration of things all along the way, you got to do it. And even if it feels like, well, I haven't gotten there yet, you're getting there. And like I said on the last live, you know, it's that confidence muscle. You know, we're building that confidence muscle that, you know, I did it. You know, I can do it. I will, I am. All those things, we're building that all along the way. And that is, it's critical. You got to celebrate all those moments. Yep.
Well, you know, I met a gentleman who, again, reached pretty successful uh, levels in his career. And I always want to know people's story, you know, like, where'd you start and what'd you do and how'd you get there? And he said, I'll tell you, it just came from switching one word into another word. And I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit more. So he says, well, you know, I was the kind of guy that if you cut in front of me, I'd get road rage. I'd chase you. I don't know what I do. I always wanted to be like a detective on one of those TV shows, you know, like, you know, and he said everybody around me, you know, just had a hard time because I would just overreact. You know, things would trigger me in so many ways. But he said, One time I was at a mall waiting for my family to get back from shopping, and I was anxious and impatient and everything else. And I saw somebody and it upset me even more. But it occurred to me that if I just switched the word frustration with fascination, everything seemed to be in a better perspective. So instead of getting angry, I was like, how could someone do something? That's fascinating. Let me think on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we talked about a few weeks ago is mindset. And that's the key to our topic is really to motivate so people can apply it.
Yeah.
Oh, Cindy's here. I don't know how this is working, but
I went ahead, Don, on your profile, on your post about this one, I put YouTube and Facebook links. So if anybody wants to join, so hopefully that will be helpful for them. So yeah, because it's tough, but I think it goes to what you're saying. Resiliency, man. I mean, when you're, getting motivated about something, when you're motivated to share and really help, like we were saying, build that community and talk to people, you'll figure out a way to do it. Okay, LinkedIn's not gonna, it's having a little tantrum today. No biggie. There are other platforms that can help support this live with that. That's just power in numbers, right? There's 3 streaming platforms that I have right now for this. So if one is a little wonky, the other 2 are there to help support it. Power in numbers, for Mike and Cindy who are here, who've made it, that's great. They can offer support for each other, just like that show that we did a couple weeks ago where the whole audience was helping each other through a couple of things. Remember, we had the 3 people who were writing, 1 who was a children's book author, 2 who wanted to write a children's book. They're helping each other in the chat. Like all that power in numbers, that community, everybody wants to talk about the trends to watch in 2023. And that's great. I shouldn't do it that way, but I think it's funny because there are like 1,000 different videos out there, but community is one that's every single year. And I think it's going to be really big and important this year because people are hungry for it. The more we see activity like we saw last week with mass layoffs by gigantic companies, and people feel like I am just a number. I'm not. Tell members to search. Oh my goodness. But yeah, can you put Mike's comment up? Because I can't say that. It's the most recent one. There you go. If you want to leave that up, that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Great. And you know what I'm learning from this, and I'm trying to learn as fast as real time will let me, is yesterday was a wonderful LinkedIn Live, and it really expressed a lot of sincere, honest feelings from a lot of people to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then you got to ask yourself, what does this make you feel and why? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I look at it as like, well, I do this every day for 8 months. So if this was like once a year or once a month, it'd be like really frustrating. But I know I'm going to keep doing them, and I have all the opportunity to talk.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you build momentum, and it's almost like people are waiting to eat, and you can't serve them. You promote it. That's my frustration and disappointment is not with Restream or LinkedIn. I'm so aware of technology challenges that they don't surprise me, but what they do is they break up some of the momentum. And the other part is the mystery some people have that they don't see it after you promote it.
Yeah.
So, it's like, how do you unring a bell? And you're trying to build character and integrity and thoughtfulness. But I guess what it also demonstrates is a preview of what's to come for everybody who ends up putting their toe in this water. And maybe our surprise won't be as much of a surprise to you knowing that it exists out there. And it really makes for another great show.
It does. It does.
So you're working with real situations in real time with real people. Cindy shared it on LinkedIn. Great. And that's what happens when you're on a road trip and you get a flat tire, right? And you find out you don't got a jack. So you got to be resourceful. I added, okay, got that. We're going to keep that on. Nice job, Cindy. Thanks. Um, and actually some of the programs where it's a little more intimate, less people, can be more meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what the common thread through so many of these LinkedIn Lives is an attitude of gratitude,
Yes.
right? So if you focus on what's wrong instead of what's right, and will continue to get better over time, that makes a difference. And, it's just being with people. I think, what I love about LinkedIn Live is I get to see the people, get to hear the people, get to feel the people where,
Yeah.
doing a post is like the Pony Express, it's like,
You gotta
I tried to get it before you took the first sip. Uh,
warn me.
because
So
you drop
funny.
it, it's like a pony taking something, dropping it off, someone eventually looking at it, responding because they're between things. So they want to be as personalized, but as fast as they can, versus it's okay. I mean, I think that's the first thing to launching, initiate. And that's really what we're going to go over is be proactive. The people who go first do the best. Motivate people so they're bringing a positive mindset, and they're excited,
Yep.
and make sure they apply what they've learned. And then the other thing we talked about in one of these LinkedIn Lives today that probably no one saw was celebrate little things,
Yeah.
and be your own best friend.
Yes.
Be
Yeah.
an advocate for yourself.
Yeah. Nobody in the world is going to treat you better than you treat yourself. Even if you think they are, they're not, because people take their cues from you. It's one of the things like, that I've said before about people in leadership positions, but it's really true of everybody. When you're in a leadership position, everybody's watching you anyway. And they're taking their cues about what's acceptable and appropriate and all that from you, which is why when you're in a leadership position anywhere, you need to be very conscious of how you are showing up. But everybody in your life takes their cues about how to treat you by how you treat yourself. You're telling them, you telegraph how you expect to be treated, good or bad. We got to own it, but you do. And it's one of the other reasons why I think the power of community is so important, because that is an area where even if you're not aware, there are times where I've been like, no, I've got it going on. I'm treating myself great. Like I am important. I know what I'm doing. I'm making myself a priority. And I've had one or two people from my own community go, are you? You sure about that? Because I don't think you are. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. A very famous, time, not famous, but famous for me, was in 2014. 2014 was a terrible year. There were things that happened that year in my family that we've still not really fully recovered from. But I was spinning all the plates. I was juggling all the balls. I had I was doing my work. I had my team. I was, leading my department. I had my family. I had all the stuff I was doing. And finally, it was two people that I work with who were like, you're not okay. I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. You're not okay. And it's okay to say you're not okay. So that the power of community, they can hold up a mirror in times when you may not even realize you're not able to do it. So, lock arms with each other, go forward together. I think that's the best way. Oh, Mike wants to know what was the biggest highlight from the live last week. Mike, do you mean the one that I did with Don, or just in general? Because he does one every day. So,
Well, my greatest highlight, kind of was something that continued to grow through the week, which was interaction, participation among the people. And I was mentioning to Sarah, it's almost like now we're developing a 3-ring circus where, myself and the co-host are, let's say, in the main ring, but then people go off and create their own rings, right? Where now there's 2 or 3 people involved, like the ladies with the children's books.
yeah.
Sarah definitely lit a fire yesterday with her
Yeah.
story, and I think the goal when you want to be on the show or a co-host is empowerment. Empowering people to do a little bit more in different areas maybe they're not accustomed to. Some people are ready to take the big leap. Some people are just looking to take a preview of what it is, and everybody has their uncomfortable comfort level.
Yeah.
Right. And they're afraid, that's really what I tell people. They found out that one of the biggest fears in America on Sunday night is a person has to go to the job they hate,
Yeah.
work for people that don't respect them and they don't like.
Yeah.
And the biggest fear is they'll get fired.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's called the Sunday Scaries, and they're a very real thing. And think about what you just said. People get so anxiety ridden on Sundays because they know on the horizon is going to a job they don't like, working for somebody that they don't feel valued by or recognized by. And yet their biggest fear is losing that job, being separated from that, right? Those two things are in direct opposition to each other. That's part of the reason, because you feel chained to that experience. Like, I need this, I have to have it to pay my bills, to do whatever it is.
Mhm.
But you don't. It can be very freeing. There are bad things that happen. And again, last week when we had a wave of layoffs, but again, you have to take it as an individual thing and work through that individually. The collective mindset, we're talking about the power of community, and community is very important, but your community, the hive mind can be good or bad. And when we get caught up in this groundswell of everything's terrible, jobs are scarce, all these kind of things, they're not. The economy actually is pretty strong right now, and the job market is not. I mean, jobs are being added all the time. That a couple of companies, chose to do these waves, that's one thing. But there are a million others. And April Little had a post today where she was talking about, I wonder how many new startups are going to be formed by people who, have been displaced through job loss. That's huge. You think about what that could look like. People who are the brains behind some of the products we love at Google or Microsoft or any of these other ones, they could start their own company. They could start their own technology company offering a product that is a direct competitor to something that they did there. I mean, you think about the possibilities, and that's energizing. So it's really important to think about, how you're taking the control that you have over what you do with the information that's put before you, or the events that unfold in your life. And I see, the Sunday blues. Yeah. Again, Cindy, you're right, because it's very important to understand it's a real thing. It does happen. It affects a lot of people, but there are things that you can do that can help you get through those. So for example, if you're really dreading that, put something on your calendar that's having lunch or just calling somebody that you love, that you get energized talking to. If it's a friend who always buoys you up or something else, have it on your calendar just so there's something to look forward to. That's actually, strategically speaking, very effective. Your mood can change on a dime. We all know that, like our brains automatically go, oh yeah, I can get pissed off or blah, blah, blah on a dime, but you can get happy on a dime. You literally can. Conjure some memories. Again, I've talked about this where, it's part thought switching, right? So I have a thought that whenever I get like my whole face, I can't, like those moments where you're just like that emoji with the brain coming off, like you're just that upset. When I get like that, there's a thought that I have. When I was younger, I used to love to ride horses. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. I used to ride horses with my friend Amanda Howard. And we would ride and we would go over to Amanda's house. And no matter what time of year it was or what time of day it was or what day of the week it was, her house always smelled like somebody just cooked bacon. And it cracks me up just thinking about it. I have no idea why it always smelled like that. But it always did, whether anybody was home or not. You open that front door and it's just like bacon. And it cracks me up to this day. So when I'm really upset, I think about horseback riding with Amanda and bacon, and it levels my mood. It just on a dime, it turns that corner for me. And now I'm able to kind of reframe and look at the issue, whatever's going on again. And I find that to be very helpful. A lot of people have those, I guess some people call it the happy place, your happy place. go there. It's a technique. It's not just a, a nice plaque that you see on somebody's wall or something. It's a strategy. It's a technique that you can use any single time you want. It's free. It's in your brain. Only you have it. It's special to you. That's why you're unique. Go there. Go to your happy place. It exists for a reason, and it will transport your mood and put you in a frame of mind where you can now begin to problem solve for whatever the event was that caused you to need to go there in the first place. Like, that's a legit technique that anybody can use, and it works.
Yeah, and what I always do is I start walking, and eventually it disappears. I mean, you might have to walk 2 miles, and the reason you're walking is because, to me, if you're sitting, you're stewing.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there all huddled up in a chair looking at a screen with people and office equipment or walls. And once you get out and you start walking, you can't help but start hearing the birds, seeing the trees, looking at what's going on outside. And then eventually, after 10 or 15 minutes, you start wearing off. In other words, it's better to get rid of the steam through walking than through stewing.
Physical activity is so important. Like Mike was just saying, he likes hiking. Cindy's talking about, you can't stay in a bad mood if you intentionally smile. That's a physical response. That's absolutely. Those things are really important. Hiking. Yeah, I love hiking too.
Well, the other thing is, I think to what you're saying, Gretchen, is it's okay to trick yourself once in a while.
But it's not tricking, because
But what I learned is my wife's been a yoga instructor for like 35 years, and she's got her own Zoom station and stuff like that. She does, so well. And early, like years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, laughter yoga came out.
Huh.
And it was so interesting, and people would meet like in City Park, and like 100 people would show up, and somebody would do something that was so ridiculous and funny, and everybody would then intentionally laugh as hard as they could and practice doing that. And eventually that created a contagion of laughter. And what they proved is, whether you were laughing at something that was naturally funny or something you made yourself laugh, the same impact happened to, areas of your body that made you calmer.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by trick, is not to be false to yourself, but maybe find things funnier than they are. Maybe find serious things less serious than they are. And I always come back to, hey, this isn't blood and guts, right? Whatever it is, no one's getting hurt. Everybody's who they are. And I think every time you think you got it, something comes and humbles you. It's everything, you got control, or you're a master of it. And hey, it's working for you. Something like a technical glitch, something you couldn't control. And what you should do is never be surprised by it. But wonder why it took so long. I had such a great streak going,
Yeah. It's funny. Cindy was asking if your wife does yoga for older adults, which, I think yoga is really cool. It's something that I've tried, and I'm horrible at it, but I still try. But I was, when you were talking about laughter yoga, I think laughter is contagious, and I think that's a very good thing. But I think anything that kind of transports your mind, can help you get into a healthier space, because again, quieting your mind is one of the hardest things to do. But when you can do that, you can really be present. And when you're present, you can figure things out, right? You have ideas, you're more creative. Like, it just, again, it activates that whole prefrontal cortex of the brain where all the good stuff happens, right? And then you can just go from there. You were talking about when things happen, and I was like, you can be riding the wave of everything's good, and then something's going to happen. And it can be small or it can be big. I've mentioned this one before, but 2018 was, I had gotten promoted that year. I took a trip like with my husband, and we took a trip to Prague, Vienna, and Budapest. Like, that year was going great. That was in June we took the trip. In May I got promoted. Like, 2018 was going to be my turnaround year after 3 years of consistent, real tragedy and very much hardship in my family. 2018 was my year, and it was going great. And then September 12th, my house blew up. A high transmission power line fell on the chain link fence in the backyard. Everybody was like, we've never seen this happen. The police department, the fire department, everybody was like, we've never seen this happen. The utility company, and it electrified the fence, and it sent the current from the fence to the aluminum, like the screen enclosure in the back porch, up the gutters through the house. And boom, that was it. So, okay, you can't see that happening. You can't prepare for something like that. So you could be riding that good wave. Everything's going great. It was a great year until that happened. And then it's, how do you deal with that? And you create, you begin to, there are a lot of problems you got to solve, but you do it and you figure them out little by little. And that's what I did. And, that was a lot. Every day you have to strategize and how you're going to do it. And like I was saying before, tell yourself, the thought switching. You can lie to and I did early on. I was like, things are going to be okay. I've got this. We're going to get through this. I'm going to get this done. And I was lying when I first said it. And I've said this to people before. Tell yourself the good thing, even if you don't believe it. Because even if you don't believe it, keep telling yourself that, because you will eventually, because you'll start to see little signs that it's working. And to your point about the theme of this show, celebrate those. When you decide that, you've found a place to live that is furnished, that you can afford, while you're paying mortgage on a house you can't live in, while you're, having to hire a lawyer, while you're doing all these things, money, but you find a place you can afford that's furnished because you need that, because you have nothing. That's a win. Celebrate that. And on and on and on. And so eventually when you start doing those things and you recognize in your brain, that worked out. Oh, I'm doing that. Okay. So that I don't believe it at first becomes I do believe it because I am doing it. Again, that's strengthening that confidence muscle. I did it. I can do this. I can keep going. And boom, eventually now we have a home again. And that is really important. So that's why I say, even if you don't believe it at first, lie to yourself. Go ahead. Tell yourself the good thing. You can do it even if you don't believe it at first. And then celebrate everything along the way. And you will prove to yourself that you can do it and why it is important. And you can believe in yourself. And then what else can you do? Yeah, Cindy, resilience. What else can you do? I am in no way saying I'm unstoppable, but I feel that way sometimes when I look back. And I look at this 5-inch binder I have over here that I took to mediation, and I know I did that. Wow. Like, I've never done anything like that before. I've never been in that situation before. And now I'm on the other side of it and I can look back and know I did it.
Yeah, and I believe everybody has the ability to meet any challenge that comes to them.
Yeah.
I applaud what you're able to do, because when you start believing, people start believing in your belief in you, and then they start saying it.
Yep.
Right? And now you've got everybody on the right page versus a pity party, where everybody's feeling bad for you, sympathetic, and now they're feeling bad leaving you, and now you feel bad that now they feel bad, and bad just continues to multiply. To your question, Cindy, my wife does gentle yoga, mostly older women, maybe a husband or two in there, but and she still charges $10 for the last 30 years. So she's not, and she takes all the money, ends up making soup and cakes for all the older ladies who, who aren't feeling 100%. So when you do things to help people, you do it out of love and compassion. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and that's just the way it works. It's who you're with when it happens, how you deal with it when it happens, because everybody's looking to you for their clue. What is it? How do you feel? What do you think? It's the first questions you get after something happens.
Yeah.
And there's a balance between being available for help, being open to it, or being a burden and overwhelming people with a need that you can't satisfy, let alone them
Yeah.
with you. And every day is a new day. You know, the funny thing I tell people, because people get so upset in the moment or in the day, is I say, tell me a year ago to this day what you were worried about. You
Yep.
can't tell me. You might tell me one in November something happened.
Yep.
But remember that if you don't remember a year ago what happened, a year from now you won't remember this. And
Yeah.
the other thing is, you know, what it's called is just the way it is. And, you know, it is what it is. And it's whatever then you want to add to it for as long as you want to carry it. Right? If a glass breaks, you could think it's the worst thing in the world and think about blah, blah, blah. Or you could say, you know, no big deal. You know, and not that it isn't in a way, but to what Gretchen just said, once you say that, anything out loud all of a sudden has meaning.
Yep.
Once it's expressed, it can't be brought back in, right? You can't put it back in the bottle. So what I tell everybody is, if you have enough gratitude, and it's an exercise, you got to work at happiness. It's much easier to be sad. There's so many ways to get there, you know. Is you got to practice it. You know, when I wake up, I spend a few minutes just thinking, you know, remembering all the blessings,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when I go to sleep, I think of all the wonderful things that I was able to enjoy,
Yeah.
right? And if you start with gratitude and you end with gratitude,
Yeah.
you're always on the hunt for what am I going to bless tonight and be thankful for, and that's enough. You know, when
Yeah.
and that's going back to people's fears. They're usually based on supplying needs that aren't as important as what the cost of providing them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic, I know so many people who stayed home and found out it was more cost efficient not to work. You
Yeah.
know, when you factor in daycare and cleaning and gas and cars and clothes,
Clothes. Yep.
you know, the whole deal. And now you're netting like 150, and then someone's taking care of kids that aren't as interested as you are. You're doing things that aren't naturally you, and then all you got to do is figure, how do I make 150 a week at home?
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever the differential. Or maybe I decide to take the next step and look at what am I spending money on that's making me have to do this. And eventually you minimize to the point where now you can get the lifestyle, both in career and personal, that you could never afford the other way. And I think it's
Yeah.
just priorities. What do you think, Gretchen? I know we're coming on the end of our hour.
Yeah.
It's been an exciting time. It's been a learning thing. I'll remember this longer. I probably would have, even on some of the records.
But I think, you know, celebrate this one because, you know, it still is streaming on 2 channels. LinkedIn will figure itself out, hopefully, to maybe do a test later. But I applaud you. I'm celebrating the fact that this to me is a win. You know, you can't do anything about LinkedIn's ability to, you know, maintain their platform, but you did still provide value, and this is recorded. So people can still get the benefit of the wisdom that you've shared by listening to it, even if they couldn't make the live. You know, a lot of people listen to them on the replay, and that also is really telling. Like I've seen people say, I couldn't get the live, but I loved the replay. So I think that's definitely worth celebrating. And for, you know, Mike and Cindy, I'm just so glad that, you know, they were
Yeah.
able to join because their input was so great too. And I've never heard of gentle yoga, and now I know about it, and I may have to check it out because I'm, you
Well,
know, I'm an older adult. So yeah.
no, she's a great person, a great teacher, and people come for her more than what she even teaches, which is
That's important. That actually, I don't want to let that go. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's a performance coach. She does physical peak performance. And she was telling me, like, she was like, well, I don't know if, you know, if I'm a good coach and people aren't coming to, you know, there aren't enough. And I was like, okay, how many people come to one of your classes? Like 12 to 15. Why do they tell you that they're coming? Do you ever talk about them? Oh yeah, they love the vibe and the energy and all that. I'm like, well, okay, so Catherine, you do that. That they're coming to see you. just like your wife. So anybody else, like people interact with you because of you. And I think that's so important. Just bring you to the table, you know? So yeah. And Mike, I'm going to, I want to see yours when you do yours. So I'm excited for that. And
let's hope it's better. That LinkedIn is better as far as being able to integrate.
yeah,
But Gretchen, what I find about doing LinkedIn Lives, and especially with you, not only is a co-hosting opportunity, it's a co-coaching opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. So whether it was just me and you, we share enough and play enough back and forth that it really does reset things, put things in the proper perspective. And when you start with a win and you can add to it, then that's where the win-win-wins start to show up.
Absolutely.
And, I think there's something to empathy. There's something to identifying. It's not just a message, it's also the picture that people get. And, I think that's so valuable. And you can never get too strong for yourself. You can never be more supportive of yourself. But, when I did just an enclosure, when I used to do a lot of turnarounds and I had some tough roles. I mean, I had to go in and maybe slice 2/3 of the workforce in a very short period of time and only don't cut into the muscle, right? And trim as much as you can. As I heard every story, and it just broke my heart every night. They hear how people were 1 week away from the street or, just bought something and now blah, blah, blah. And I felt for them. But first of all, I didn't own it as much as the people who created it before I got there. But what I thought to myself, why are 1/3 on the lifeboat and you guys didn't make it? Right? And it's like, well, did anybody want to take some more classes? Did anybody volunteer for things? Did anybody stay later or work harder? Right? And so, in a way, it didn't justify the bad feelings, but it did show that expect that if you're, put it this way, in today's world, no matter who you're working, whoever signs a check, you're still working for yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not building a life raft while you're on the boat and give you a head start. And the other thing I learned, because I've always been an entrepreneur, is get multiple streams of income. Don't depend on anything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Always to be there. It's not like 40 years ago where IBM promised you stuff. So anyways, thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Mike. Anybody wants to learn more about my wife's yoga class, I'll be happy to connect them. And with that, look forward to tomorrow's. I'll tell you right now who's on tomorrow is Kelly. So,
yay.
Yeah, Kelly's going to be, actually, I'll tell you, Kelly's tomorrow. Carla is on Wednesday.
Yay.
Stuart Huckett from England is on Thursday. Mike's on Friday.
Yay.
No one yet on Saturday. And Sarah's back next Sunday.
Nice.
Oh yeah, she loved it and was so surprised in a pleasant way.
Yeah.
That she can just settle into a culture and environment that's so aligned and inviting for what she's into.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a happy home.
Yeah, I agree.
Hopefully this could be one of them. And the thing I felt worse about when I left my business was after 37 years, it was a family.
Yeah.
There were people there for 20, 25 years that you lived through their life experiences and you helped support them. And then you're another guy on the beach or the golf course. And it's just not, that's why I got back into LinkedIn. When you love what you do and you do what you love, why would you retire from it? And what are you retiring to it? And whether you retire at an age where you're putting your time, or you just decide to early retire for things that aren't working and rehire yourself.
Yeah.
Give yourself a better offer than your boss.
Right.
Your own dream. So anyways, with that, I want to thank everybody. I'm going to end the stream that I don't even know, it was only 50% of the stream today. But we'll catch it tomorrow, and I'll try to do some research so I understand this better. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Cindy. And thank you, Gretchen. And look forward to talking with you